You may have heard of this. There's a guy named Milo Yiannopoulos. He is the tech editor of Breitbart. Breitbart, of course, is the website named after the now deceased, at the time of decession, bloated Andrew Breitbart, who was, again, I mean, he apparently he was a good father, but as a human being, in terms of the way that I knew him, I think a wretched person. And to a certain extent, I imagine if he is in the afterlife looking down or up or sideways at his website, I imagine a smile comes across his face when he sees a guy like Milo Yiannopoulos to be his tech editor, because, like I say, Breitbart wasn't a terribly good person, at least in terms of how he functioned in the public sphere. And Yiannopoulos is equally as odious. He is part of the alt-right. I believe he would consider me a regressive cuck, as it were, which... part of the regressive cuckiness of me is that I am not upset at the notion that the movie Ghostbusters, which I believe they had like 2 or 3 versions. I think they had Ghostbusters 2 and 3. And I think after Ghostbusters 1, as much as I'm a fan of those people involved in Ghostbusters, after Ghostbusters 1, the movie, the franchise got pretty bad. But apparently the idea that they would remake the movie Ghostbusters and replace the white male characters with female characters, at least one of whom was African American, was too much for this tech editor of Breitbart. Because, of course, if you're a tech editor, then you're particularly invested in the ghost-busting technologies that were introduced during this film. And if you don't know the difference between fictional and non-fictional films, you might actually have an emotional attachment to the development of these ghost-busting technologies, and the idea that who developed them would be misrepresented in such an egregious manner as to imply that a woman, and particularly one who is African American, developed these technologies. I suppose at that point it would cause you to go on rants and raves on Twitter, bigoted, racist rants and raves, to punish the actor who would portray that figure who supposedly didn't really develop the ghost-busting tech. I'm not sure exactly what's going on here, but he was banned from Twitter because of the way he behaved, and he's whining about it on CNBC to CNBC viewers who actually, it occurs to me, probably number less than our viewership, which is pretty impressive. So let's listen to this guy now.
Let me read to you what you wrote in 2012 at the Kernel.
Sure.
It was a longer piece. The internet is not a universal human right. We ban drunks from driving because they're a danger to others. Isn't it time we did the same to trolls? Trolls, for our viewers who don't know, are how people refer to people like you who are mean on Twitter. Which, and there are very many
people like meanness.
You wrote this, right?
No, of
is
course.
This what happened? You don't agree with this anymore?
No, I agree with it entirely. Twitter is a private company. It's entitled to do what it likes. The problem is it's lying to users. Jack Dorsey says that it's the free speech wing of the free speech platform, the free speech wing of the free speech party, that he wants it to be a utility like water, that Twitter is the place you go if you want to express yourself. That's a lie. There is a systematic campaign against conservative and libertarian points of view on Twitter. And how do we know this? Not from the company's own notoriously opaque statements, but from the fact that they apply their own rules so capriciously and so inconsistently that there is only one possible explanation. Twitter is perfectly happy to host ISIS, to host death threats against Donald Trump supporters, and they do nothing in any of these cases. Not hard enough. But you make a joke about a feminist, or you dislike the new Ghostbusters movie, or you have the audacity to dislike the work in Hollywood of somebody who happens to be black or happens to be a woman, and then you get suspended.
Let me read you what Twitter
absurd.
says.
Ladies and gentlemen, Milo Yiannopoulos. It's a perfect example of where a British accent will take you in this country.
Breitbart's tech coverage is just fantastic, though.
Oh my gosh, they were right on the cusp of reporting that I think he was getting banned from Twitter. I think they may have broken that story. So there he is complaining. He simultaneously also contends that conservatives are winning the culture war, and that's why Twitter has to strike back. There's something about Brits who come to this country and are conservatives that is...
It's like catnip.
There's something to that. I mean, and I think there's something like, because I actually spent a year back many years ago, decades ago now, in Australia. And there is a quality. I mean, there's something interesting about living as an alien in a country where, you're just defined by your accent. I mean, obviously, everybody's white there and everybody speaks English. But there is something that makes you feel special about yourself. In fact, I sold hot dogs at one point in like downtown Sydney. And by being an American, I would do better than all the people I was competing against in the same company. We weren't really competing, but they were British or they were Australian, and I would do better than them. They were also massive problem drinkers. And so they weren't as motivated as I was. But nevertheless, the fact that I was American would help. And there is that quality of I like being an outsider. And then I think he's got to double down on it. And that's what this is about. So it's sort of sad.
I think also they feel like they're almost in a playground. They don't have as
There's
deep,
no stake.
visceral. Yeah, exactly. There's no stake. So you can kind of convince yourself that the consequences aren't quite as real.
I think that's true. I mean, as a performer, I remember doing industrials, and once you get the check, you just don't give a crap because it's not like these are your fans anyways, and so you just sort of mail it in, and to some level, that's sort of like he's freed up by that, I think. But now he's not on Twitter, and so this is probably going to be close to the last time we ever mention him. I don't know if
he's a martyr, though.
He is a martyr.
He's a martyr, and that's a big deal. I mean, there's nothing the conservatives love more than martyrs. And even if it's a martyr who smeared a third-rate movie, Ghostbusters,
right.
African-American actress, and he lost his right to be able to smear her on a privately owned company's platform. Nevertheless, he's a martyr.
These are the same people, incidentally, who will tell you that they think private companies should be able to ban people just based on their race. And that, well, if they do that, it's going to be bad for their business. Well, here's a perfect test for the libertarian ideology. If Milo Yiannopoulos is correct, then Twitter will probably collapse shortly. Or maybe he can set up his own site, Yiannopoulos.com. I mean, he might want to just call it Milo.com.
First, they came for the publicity hound who mobilized tens of thousands of racists to harass individuals, and I said nothing.
That's right. Then they came for the peroxide dyed Brit, and I said nothing again. And then actually, when they came for him, we applauded it.
And everyone enjoyed themselves more.
That's right. And the world became just slightly, almost immeasurably, but just slightly better. Hello, you. I'm Sam Seder. Looking for smart progressive talk that is occasionally amusing? Well, subscribe to our YouTube feed. Subscribe to our podcast. Like us on Facebook. And just generally enjoy us.